Hello again, everybody. Welcome back. Very happy to have you here today. This is Max, as always. Today we speak about chapter 5.2, which is called The Recovery. This chapter talks about the amazing recovery economically for Germany in the first few years of Hitler's rule. And this is all interesting information in my view because none of this is usually mentioned in the history books, as we know. And I find it very important to lay this groundwork down for you to understand why things went the way they went. And I know that after this chapter I will have a slew of comments from our usual internet trolls in my comments. And that's all fine and dandy for me, you know. Call me a Hitler apologist as much as you like. It doesn't really matter. I do not read any comments. I certainly don't answer any comments unless it's something important, interesting, and useful. So let's not go there, please. Usual housekeeping we have to get through. My Amazon page where you can find the book. Please support me there. Our YouTube page, which is growing very well, so please give us a like, support the channel. Same goes for Rumble, and same goes, as usual, for our Brighteon page. So please give me likes and support my work. It would be highly, highly appreciated. I've mentioned before that most of my World War I and World War II information comes out of a beautiful documentary series called Europa: The Last Battle. I forgot in the previous videos to show you where you can find this information online, so I'm going to give it to you right here. This is the website. I don't know if you can see on top of your screen, the website name is europathelastbattle.net. Okay, that's .net in the end. There you can go in and you can stream all the 10 episodes, which will keep you busy for about 30 hours. And check this information by yourself, if you don't mind. So here is the website, and please, if you feel so inclined, go there and check it for yourself. Now, let's get into this chapter. When Hitler took power, there were over 6 million Germans without employment. The industry was non-existent. All the gold reserves has been taken from the victors, so-called victors, of World War I. Hitler became the first leader in the world to kick out the criminal banking cabal. He became the only leader in history to arrest a Rothschild. Yes, he actually did that. He held him in jail for a year and demanded a ransom of $21 million for his release, which, by the way, was paid. This is the newspaper article from back in the day, so it did actually happen. He started immediately restricting ownership of newspapers, radio, etc. He also closed the infamous Frankfurt School, which was a brainwashing institution, a university that was Khazaria Mafia controlled and taught in the ways of communism. The professors eventually escaped to America to work for universities. He immediately decided that Germany would not be under the control of interests, economic slavery. Banning the usury practices that are so essential to banking as we know it. Usury would now be punishable by death. Imagine that today, huh? He created a new Deutschmark that was backed by that was backed not by gold, as they did not have any, but by German physical and intellectual labor. By having eliminated the parasitical bankers from the equation, the economy took off right away. Instead of borrowing money from the banks with interest, better than ever. The country now had a stable currency, no debt, and no inflation to speak of. Unemployment decreased from 50% to less than 2% in a few years. It was indeed a miracle, unheard of in history. This short little clip that I'll show you here explains it very well. So here we go.
And billions for the bankers, debts for the people, 1984, Sheldon Emery stated, Germany issued debt-free and interest-free money from 1935 and on, accounting for its startling rise from the Depression to a world power in 5 years. Germany financed its entire government and war operations from 1935 to 1945 without gold and without debt, and it took the whole capitalist and communist world to destroy the German power over Europe and bring Europe back under the heel of the bankers. Such history of money does not even appear in the textbooks of public schools today.
So there you have it. An absolute priority of Hitler's was to re-establish the pride of the people and bring them back to their roots and values. He organized a one-time event for everyone to see. This event has later been used in propaganda in our history books as some Nazi depraved act. I'm sure you heard about it. University student organized a one-time book burning, yes, you have heard about it, right? Of degenerate Marxist literature and books from the Institute of Sex Research in Berlin on May 10, 1933. In his mind, this kind of literature had to be eliminated in order for the Germans to heal and progress. You never read this version in your history books, I'm sure, and it's never mentioned where the actual books that were burned came from. You have been lied to. I always thought, in my teachings when I was young, that Hitler was a madman, that he burned all the books to eliminate history and create his own, right? No, that was not the case at all. What they burned was pornography. Many cultural actions were to follow. Movies, art, education were completely redone with their own values of family, unity, and with particular focus on the family unit. I will show you here a German lady that describes this very much better than I ever could.
Hitler transformed his country from an economically ruined land on the brink of breakdown, civil war, and total collapse into the world's most advanced and prosperous country.
Everybody was in a very bad economic situation. There was unemployment, there was hunger and inflation. And then Hitler came and offered that he would make Germany as a great nation again, and he would give back our lost self-confidence. And I myself, I was educated that my home country was something I have to serve to, and I was Vaterlandsliebe, and I was very proud of my country actually. I was infected actually by the singing and the crying and shouting to greet him, and I felt it was something very touching. And after he came to power, he started immediately to put in practice what he promised, and he gave housing to the workers and employment to the unemployed, and there was food, and everything was in order again.
The world was very impressed and wanted to learn how this was even possible. National Socialism at the time, in the 30s this is, was becoming a thing. The picture I will show you now on the screen is shocking, but also absolutely real. It says here, 20,000 Americans attend a Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden, New York, February 20th, 1939, just before World War II began. This is how big this movement was, and it was worldwide, mind you. It wasn't only Germany that was paying attention to this. Very, very interesting indeed. How it could come from this to absolute hatred and disgust after the war. What changed? What happened? Right? Remember, all of this occurred during the Great Depression, while the world had collapsed economically. There was this only nation doing really well. Nobody could understand why. Hitler also relaxed strict gun control laws, opposite to what history depicts, allowing the people to defend themselves again. History tells us that it was the disarmament of the people that led to Hitler's rise, but that is simply not true. It was the Weimar government before him that implemented such laws, which Hitler abolished. 1st of May 1933 was made a holiday for the workers, and other activities were implemented such as leisure cruises and affordable holidays. The first charters were organized to the Portuguese island of Madeira, where Germans could bash in the sun almost for free. In order to generate more work, the construction of the Autobahn, the highway, the first of its kind, had started. The entire network was built not to disturb the landscape or intrude into farmland. Trust me, it is actually quite remarkable. I've driven the Autobahn most of my life. It's a beautiful highway. It's just absolutely stunning. Plus, there was no speed limit back in the time, and that's obviously awesome for petrol heads like me. Now, this proved to be a very good idea, as having the first highway in the world would prove to be a very valuable asset for transportation of military equipment during the upcoming war, although it was not built for that purpose originally. Now, they needed a cheap car to fill these highways, and cars were expensive. Daimler Mercedes was available, but way too pricey. Here's a nerdy little fact for you. Did you know that Mercedes was the name of the daughter of Mr. Daimler, who created the company? Huh? Now you know. Hitler got together with Ferdinand Porsche, very famous brand, and designed a car that would be suitable for the masses. The famous Beetle was born. Hitler gave it its name, Volkswagen, car of the people. It is still today the most sold vehicle in the world. Now, production halted in 2003 when their Mexican plant ceased operation. The last ever produced Beetle in baby blue color is shown at the Volkswagen Museum in Wolfsburg, Germany today. The car that you see on your screen, isn't it cute? Now, the Boxer engine that was developed for this car is still a standout feature of the Porsches of today, an all-time incredible engine to this day. 1933, Hitler passed a law that enabled married couples to obtain interest-free loans. Minimum 1,000 Reichmarks, equaling 9 months' salary, to set up homes and start families. For each childbirth, the couple was allowed to keep 250 marks with no repayment required. Newly married couples with children received these generous loans, repayable in 10 years, in order to be able to purchase a house or an apartment. A birth of a first child would cancel a quarter of the loan. 4 children would cancel the entire debt. In Hitler's Germany, women were looked upon as guardians of future generations and were treated as such. Listen to this speech below in this regard.
Und das müssen Sie von mir verstehen. Wenn ich heute einen weiblichen Juristen von mir habe und der kann noch so viel leisten und nebenan eine Mutter mit 5, 6, 7 Kindern und die sind ganz gesund und sie von ihr gut erzogen, dann möchte ich sagen, vom ewigen Standpunkt des ewigen Wertes unseres Volkes aus hat die Frau, die Kinder bekommen kann und die sie nun bekommen hat und die sie nun erzogen hat und die unserem Volk damit das Leben in die Zukunft geschenkt hat wieder, hat mehr geleistet. Sie hat mehr getan Sie hilft mit, den Tod unseres Volkes zu vermeiden.
Yeah, the words of a madman, right? The words of a madman right there. Now, houses and apartments were built for the workers. Villages of small family homes were set up. The payments were set so low that anyone could afford his or her own house. All houses were built to the highest standard, considering public health. Before the end of 1933, Hitler managed to construct 200,000 buildings. Within 4 years, 1.5 million homes were built. The monthly rent for a worker was around 1/8 of his or her monthly salary. Imagine that today, huh? Same thing went for the farmers, where houses and farms were built for them, around 91,000 in 3 years. Talk about keeping busy, huh? The National Socialists were the first to actively campaign against smoking, making it illegal in all public places. How about that? In 1927, they implemented the first law that prohibited the sale of alcohol to minors. That is actually 1937, sorry. And implemented stiff penalties for drunk driving, introducing even the first blood test to catch offenders. This is the one I like the most, actually. Adolf Hitler was the first person to create a law against the mistreatment of animals. Yep, you read that right. Thus outlawing animal experiments. Germany even hosted an international convention for animal protection in Berlin. Animal protection was introduced as a topic in schools, and it was considered relevant information. I find that absolutely astonishing. Now, Hitler was at this point considered a national hero, and he was even named Man of the Year in Times magazine in 1938, as per the picture you see on your screen. So, as you see, I'm painting a picture of a man here that seems to have all his ducks in a row. I mean, a man who really deeply cares about his country and his people. Because everything I described to you here is historical fact. It can be back-checked and proven to be true. So, what about all this demonization we all hear about? It's confusing. So I wish to end this informative chapter with 2 little links that describes very well the feelings of those days. The emotions seem real. The numbers support this feeling. It was a good place to be for a German. This does not look like the actions of a madman to me. Why did they teach me that in school? Let's play this clip.
So what we know about Adolf Hitler is like what we know about history. The victors, of course, write the history, don't they? They write the history, and they tell us a narrative, and we're supposed to swallow that bullshit as if it's true. The major crime of Adolf Hitler was that he got Germany out of a banking debt that was drowning the German people in a cesspool of moral decay, drowning in debt. And he had the nerve to actually say fuck off to the bankers and start printing their own money. And Germany went from a destitute post-World War country that was drowning, Germans starving, no jobs, nothing. And he got them out of that debt and literally brought that nation back to a powerhouse within several years just by using their own money supply. That's the real crime that Adolf Hitler committed. Now, I could sit here and talk and really excite the senses a little bit more about everything we've been taught about World War II and the Holocaust, but let it suffice to say that it fits in line with virtually everything we've been told about history in general. Bullshit. Bullshit. And John F. Kennedy had the courage and the balls and integrity to bypass the Federal Reserve Bank, to bypass this financial system, and he was dead within 6 months. And there ain't no coincidence there. Definitely none. We only need to do one thing to turn it all around. One thing. Let's confront that financial system. Let us print our own money.
You see the faces of them Germans coming out in their droves to greet Adolf Hitler with genuine smiles on their face. This is something you can't act, you can't hide. You know, it's there for all to see because there's no denying it. There's an awesome love for this guy, and there would be. Who wouldn't love a guy who's took you out of poverty and put you into a place now where your family's secure, you know you've got bread on your table, and your wages are solid and everything's fine. You would adore this guy. Now, these are not actions of an evil man. This is a man who loves his country and loves the people in his country.
So there you have it. They don't look too sad to me, honestly, but who am I to say? I was born in 1976. I didn't live this. I was just told. I read the books, right, like everybody else. I hope this provides some context for you all, dear listeners and viewers, that not everything is as it seems, okay? And I like to finish this little podcast with a speech from a National Socialist in modern times. This is today. This is a literal Nazi talking to you here. And I guess that speech like this would get us arrested if we would talk in this way. And I'll see you on the other side with my final comments.
A lot of people, of course, have seen History Channel documentaries and scare pieces on the mass media that give a distorted view of what National Socialism actually is. First of all, National Socialism is an ideology about life. It's about the cultivation of life, of building strong families, of building families that are able to raise good children, children that are moral, children that are healthy, and children that are on a path of virtue to be able to build a better and brighter future for the nation. It's about cooperation, specifically class cooperation, gender cooperation, and cooperation throughout all members of society. National Socialism views the nation like a body, and a body takes all different parts. The liver is not more important than the brain or the heart or the arm or the leg. Everything works in tandem with one another to be able to be life. We as National Socialists support every single member of our community as being part of an extended family. The working class has a responsibility and a duty to be able to work hard, but they also have a right to economic justice, to having their voices be heard within society. And bosses have a right to be able to make profits within their corporations and companies. But they also need to ensure that they're putting the best interests of the worker, families, and the nation first. We believe in taking from the right nationalism without capitalism, and from the left socialism without internationalism. At the end of the day, National Socialism and its economic theory is about putting the nation first, because the nation is your family. National Socialism is also about rejecting capitalism and communism. Capitalism and communism are two ideologies that take the human being and make him a cog within a greater machine. Communism wages a war of the poor against the rich, and capitalism is a war of the rich against the poor. Both of these are Jewish ideologies, and ideologies that poison the national community. They tear apart the working class, they tear apart families, and they turn the nation into one giant fire sale, to be able to say that whoever has the most money or the most power is able to loot and pillage it. National Socialism says that the national community has to work together, that we need to ensure that everyone has rights and duties and responsibilities to one another, and this in turn creates a healthier society. National Socialism believes in the cultivation of virtue. We reject the degeneracy that we see in the modern West, the pornography that we see on our television screens, the radical individualism within our society, and instead say we want to be able to cultivate and activate within ourselves natural beauty. We want to be able to build beautiful art. We want to be able to build beautiful cities and beautiful communities. This is about the cultivation of what is good. And everything about capitalism and communism and the Jewish power structure is about destroying what is good. We see this in the modern West, whether it's the importation of foreign peoples, foreign ideologies, radical feminism, abortion, and a culture that supports death instead of life. This is an ideology of death, a death cult that is destroying the Western peoples in the Western world. We as National Socialists support an ideology of life, of rebirth and rebuilding ourselves and our nations. We're an ideology that believes in peace throughout the entire world. General Leon Degrelle said that National Socialism and racialism is about lifting your own people up, and we want the same for every single group of people. We want every single ethnicity and ethnic community around the world to be able to be stronger, to be able to chart their own destiny, and to be able to work together against the international Jew, work against the international capitalist, and work against a system that breaks apart nations and families. Finally, National Socialism is an ideology that isn't an ideology. It follows natural law. These are principles that are within all of us. We as National Socialists, whether we are Christians or pagans or simply agnostics, understand that there is a greater power, and there's greater principles that drive us in this world. As an extended family and a national community, we're not at war with one another over differences on religion, differences in subculture, or differences in class. We understand that working together as a team is what will make our nation strong. National Socialism is building a better and brighter future. So you might hear a lot of lies in the media, but what the truth is we are the only ideology that can defeat the international Jew and the international capitalists, not just in our nation, but in all nations, to bring about an earth where we take care of the environment, we take care of animals, we take care of the water we drink and the air we breathe, and we take care of our blood and our culture. National Socialism makes you a steward. You have responsibilities and duties. It is not an ideology for the weak. It is an ideology for those that love their faith, their family, and their folk.
So, this is the words of an actual Nazi, ladies and gentlemen. And I suppose that you're all sitting there thinking now that what is wrong with anything that this young man said? Right? I'm not hearing anything wrong here at all. On the contrary, it's the most anti-racist speech I heard in a long, long time, because he does also mention that they respect other cultures. They want everybody of different skin color, different religion, it doesn't matter who you are, to prosper and to be happy and healthy, etc. I find it very difficult to demonize such speech. So, why was I taught differently? Why have I spent my entire life thinking that these people were crazy? Okay, so that's how I want to end this today. I hope if I've done enough of a good job, I think and I feel that a picture is starting to emerge that will lead into the start of the war and the absolute destruction that the Khazarian mafia had imposed on Hitler and on Germany because they just chose to say no to international capitalism and to the dictates of the Khazarian mafia. We will move on to the next chapter, where the real stuff begins, chapter 5.3, called The Sabotage. So we go from the recovery to the sabotage on the next chapter. So that's all for me today. Max out, and peace to you all.